Chosen one, listen very carefully. This moment is not random, and this video did not find you by accident. Something shifted behind the scenes, quietly, without noise, and today it reached you. While others were still speaking against you, questioning you, doubting your worth, a higher authority stepped in. You didn't see the meeting, you didn't hear the order, but it happened. The judge watched everything in silence, weighed every delay, every injustice, every unpaid promise, and then made a decision that changed your timeline. What was blocked has been unlocked. What was frozen has been released. And what they tried to hold back from you was ordered to move immediately. You may have felt pressure lifting recently without knowing why. You may have sensed a calm before understanding the reason. That wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. The same people who tried to slow you down have suddenly gone quiet, not because they chose peace, but because they were silenced. This is the moment where things turn fast and answers arrive without explanation. Not later, not someday, now. This isn't just about money, it's about justice, timing, and proof that you were never forgotten. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear explains why this order was given, why it couldn't be delayed anymore, and why your life is about to move in a way you didn't expect. But before we go any further, connect yourself to this moment. Like the video, comment, "Thank you, God, for choosing me," and subscribe to the channel. What's unfolding next only reaches those who stay connected till the end. The silence wasn't weakness. It was evidence being gathered. For a long time, it honestly felt like life was stuck on pause, like you were putting in effort, but nothing was moving forward in a visible way. You weren't fighting back the way you used to. You weren't reacting to every comment. And you stopped explaining your side to people who never really wanted to understand it anyway. From the outside, it may have looked like you were falling behind or losing momentum, but inside, something else was quietly happening. You were learning when to stay silent, when to conserve energy, and when not to waste your voice. That silence wasn't you giving up. It was you stepping back and letting things reveal themselves naturally. Every time someone delayed what they owed you, treated you unfairly, or made promises they didn't keep, it added weight to the truth. You didn't have to point it out. You didn't have to collect proof or convince anyone. Life itself was doing that work in the background. While others kept talking, defending, justifying, and sometimes lying, you chose calm. You chose restraint. And that choice allowed patterns to become clear without you saying a word. Silence gave space for reality to speak louder than any argument ever could. People showed who they were through their actions, not their explanations. Situations exposed themselves without being pushed. What once felt like delay was actually timing, lining everything up properly. That's why when things finally shifted, it felt sudden, almost unexpected. But it wasn't rushed at all. It was precise. Every moment had been watched, every move accounted for, every pause meaningful. You weren't ignored. You were being observed. Your patience, your self-control, and your refusal to act out of emotion became the strongest evidence in your favor. You didn't need to prove your worth loudly because your consistency did it quietly. And when decisions were made, they were made with clarity, not confusion. That's the power of staying still when chaos invites reaction. You protected your peace, while the truth built its case on your behalf. What looked like nothing happening was actually everything aligning. And now, when movement begins, it carries weight, direction, and purpose, because it was never about speed, it was about accuracy. They overplayed their control, and that triggered intervention. Some people don't know when to stop. At first, it may look like they're just being careful, cautious, or slow, but over time, you start to notice a pattern. They begin delaying things that don't belong to them. To delay, they start making decisions they were never given the right to make. They stretch their control just a little more each time, thinking no one is watching and nothing will happen. That's exactly how it unfolded here. What began as resistance slowly turned into overconfidence. They assumed they could manage the outcome, shape the timing, and decide what you deserved. And that's where they miscalculated. There's a difference between holding responsibility and abusing control. When someone crosses that line, the balance shifts. It's no longer about disagreement or negotiation. It becomes about correction. You may not have seen the exact moment it happened, but there was a point where enough became enough. The delay was no longer neutral. The control was no longer justified. The situation quietly moved beyond human authority. And once that happens, there are no debates left. What's important to understand is that intervention doesn't come with noise. There were no warnings sent to you, no dramatic signs announced. Instead, things started rearranging behind the scenes. People who once felt powerful suddenly lost confidence. Plans that were meant to keep you waiting stopped working. The grip they thought they had began to loosen without explanation. That's usually how you know authority has stepped in. Control fades without confrontation. They didn't expect this turn. They believed they had more time, more influence, more say. But when limits are pushed too far, decisions are made quickly and cleanly. No arguments, no emotional back and forth. Just a clear outcome. That's why everything feels different now. The energy around the situation has shifted. You're no longer asking, chasing, or justifying. Things are moving because they've been told to move. This kind of correction isn't about punishment. It's about restoring balance. When someone tries to manage what was never theirs to manage, the system resets itself. And when it does, it doesn't ask for opinions. It simply acts. That's what you're witnessing now. The control they relied on became the very reason they lost it. And without you lifting a finger, the decision was made. The order came before you even asked for it. One of the most powerful parts of this whole situation is something many people miss. You didn't have to ask for it. You didn't beg anyone to notice you. You didn't chase after answers or try to force justice to show up faster. In fact, there came a moment when you quietly accepted that things might take time, and you made peace with that. Not because you gave up, but because you trusted the process more than the pressure. That shift mattered more than you realized. When you stopped pushing, something else stepped in. The order didn't come from your complaints, your explanations, or your demands. It came from alignment. Your actions started matching your values, even when it was uncomfortable. You chose patience over panic. You chose honesty over shortcuts. You chose calm over chaos. And when those choices stayed consistent, the situation corrected itself naturally. No reminders were needed. No emotional appeals were required. This is why the outcome feels surprising. You weren't sitting around waiting for a miracle anymore. You were focused on living, growing, and handling what was in front of you with dignity. That's usually when things shift, when you're no longer trying to control the timing. You did your part, and then you let go. And letting go doesn't mean losing interest. It means releasing pressure. That release created space for movement. Integrity played a big role here. You didn't twist the story to make yourself look better. You didn't exaggerate your pain to gain sympathy. You stayed honest, even when honesty felt costly. That clean record matters. When decisions are made, clarity always carries more weight than noise. And your clarity spoke louder than any argument ever could. It arrived because the conditions were right. The delay had served its purpose. The lesson had been learned. The balance had shifted. That's why it feels like it came out of nowhere. You weren't chasing the breakthrough anymore, yet it showed up anyway. Not as a reward for begging, but as a response to who you became while waiting. What's being released is tied to your responsibility, not greed. What's coming to you now isn't about quick pleasure or showing off. It's not money meant to feed ego, prove a point, or compete with anyone. What's being released is connected to responsibility. There are real reasons behind it. There are people, plans, and purposes that require support. And you're part of that bigger picture. That's why this release feels different. It carries weight. It feels serious, grounded, and meaningful. For a long time, you may have wondered why things were delayed when you were clearly ready to move forward. But the truth is, readiness isn't just about desire. It's about stability. You had to grow into the kind of person who could handle increase without losing balance. If it had come earlier, it might have created stress instead of progress. The delay wasn't meant to hurt you. It was meant to shape you. It taught you how to stay calm under pressure, how to think long-term, and how to make decisions without panic. This release is tied to things you're meant to build or protect. Maybe it's a family responsibility, a project, a business idea, or even a role that puts you in a position to help others. Whatever it is, it needs someone who won't waste resources or misuse them. You've shown that you can be trusted. You've learned the value of timing, patience, and thoughtful action. That's why what's coming now feels clean. No guilt attached, no chaos following it. You're not receiving this because you were desperate enough or loud enough. You're receiving it because you became steady enough. There's a big difference. Desperation burns fast and leaves nothing behind. Responsibility builds slowly and lasts. The version of you now understands how to pace yourself, how to say no when needed, and how to move with intention instead of impulse. That's why this phase will hold. It won't slip through your fingers. It won't disappear as quickly as it arrives. The timing matches your mindset. The release matches your growth. And because of that, it has the potential to create real change, not just for you, but for everything connected to you. The people who doubted you lost their voice, not their awareness. If you look closely, you'll notice something very telling about the people who once doubted you. They didn't come back with apologies. They didn't try to explain themselves or suddenly clear the air. Instead, they went quiet. And that silence says more than any words ever could. It's not the silence of peace or acceptance. It's the silence that comes when someone realizes the situation has changed and they no longer have control over the story. They're still watching. They're still aware. They notice the shift in your energy, your confidence, and the way things around you are starting to move. They may not understand exactly what happened or when it turned, but they feel it. Something they once dismissed is now real. Something they thought would fade has gained momentum. That awareness stays with them, even if they don't know how to respond to it. Being silenced doesn't always mean being pushed out completely. Sometimes it means losing the ability to interfere. They no longer get to comment, delay, criticize, or influence the outcome. Their opinions don't carry the same weight anymore. Their presence doesn't slow you down. They're left observing from the sidelines, unable to step in the way they once did. And that can be uncomfortable, especially for people who are used to having a say. This kind of silence often comes from realization. They recognize that the narrative they believed in no longer holds up. The doubts they projected onto you didn't stop your progress. The assumptions they made about your limits turned out to be wrong. And now, instead of arguing, they're adjusting internally. Silence becomes the safest option when confidence in one's judgment starts to crack. What matters most is that their silence creates space for you, space to move freely, space to grow without constant evaluation, space to step forward without being questioned at every turn. You didn't have to defend yourself or prove them wrong out loud. Life did that on your behalf. And while they may still be present in the background, they're no longer part of the process. Watching without interference is a form of restraint, and restraint is sometimes the clearest sign that authority has shifted. You've moved beyond needing their validation or acknowledgement. Their quiet awareness is proof enough that something real has changed. And this time, it's moving without permission. Speed is replacing delay. And that can feel unsettling at first. When you've spent a long time waiting, silence and stillness start to feel normal. So when things finally begin to move, it can feel strange, even a little uncomfortable. After months or years of delay, sudden speed can make you question what's happening. Messages arrive faster than expected. Confirmations come without long explanations. Opportunities show up before you've had time to fully prepare your emotions. Your first reaction might be disbelief. You may wonder if it's real or if it will slow down again. That reaction is completely natural. Stagnation trains the mind to expect nothing. It teaches you to brace yourself, to lower expectations, to stay guarded. So when momentum replaces waiting, your system needs time to adjust. Speed doesn't always feel exciting at first. It can feel unsettling. But that doesn't mean something is wrong. It simply means you're stepping into a new rhythm. Life is no longer asking you to hold on. It's asking you to move. This is not the moment to hesitate or second-guess yourself. Fear often shows up disguised as caution, telling you to slow down just in case. But slowing down out of fear can block what's meant to flow. This phase isn't about rushing blindly, but it's also not about freezing. It's about responding with clarity. Read the message, take the call, accept the opportunity, then act with calm confidence, not panic. You don't need to overthink every detail right now. Overthinking belongs to seasons of uncertainty. This is a season of alignment. The path is opening as you walk it, not before. Trust that you'll learn what you need as you go. You don't have to have everything figured out on day one. Movement itself will bring understanding. What's important is to stay present. Speed requires awareness, not anxiety. Ground yourself. Breathe. Stay organized. Let things come in without immediately questioning whether you deserve them. You've already done the waiting. You've already built the patience. Now, it's time to let momentum carry you forward. This phase will feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. It means new. And once you adjust, you'll realize this pace matches the growth you've already earned. The delay served its purpose. Now movement is doing its job. This moment validates your past restraint. Looking back now, you can see that every time you held yourself back, it mattered more than you realized. There were moments when reacting would have felt justified. Moments when anger, frustration, or hurt could have easily pushed you to strike back, say something damaging, or take a shortcut just to feel relief. but you didn't. You chose restraint. Not because you were afraid, but because somewhere deep inside, you knew your character was worth protecting. That choice is being validated right now. Restraint isn't easy. It often feels unfair. When others act freely without consequences, staying composed can feel like you're losing. But restraint builds something invisible at first: credibility. Every time you didn't retaliate, you kept your record clean. Every time you refused to lower your standards, you protected your future. You didn't burn bridges you might later need to cross. You didn't create messes that would come back demanding explanations. If you had acted from anger, the outcome today would feel different. Even if you had won, it would have come with tension, guilt, or unfinished business. There would be loose ends. There would be doubts. But because you stayed calm, what's being released now comes without complications. It's clear. It's complete. You don't have to look over your shoulder or worry about consequences catching up to you. This clean result is rare. Many people get what they want, but lose their peace along the way. You kept both. That's not luck. It's discipline, paying off. You didn't let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. You waited until clarity replaced impulse, and now the resolution feels solid because it's built on consistency, not chaos. There's also a quiet confidence that comes with this moment. You know you didn't cheat your way here. You didn't step on others to rise. You didn't sacrifice your values for speed. That self-respect stays with you long after the moment passes. It becomes part of how you move forward. This is proof that choosing the harder path often leads to the cleanest results. Your past restraint wasn't wasted. It was preparing this exact outcome. And now you get to move ahead, without baggage, without guilt, and without unfinished stories holding you back. Your next level depends on how you handle the first release. What happens after the first release is just as important as the release itself. This moment isn't the finish line. It's a checkpoint. It's a test of how you handle progress once it finally arrives. What you receive matters, but how you respond to it matters even more. This phase is less about celebration and more about awareness. The way you move now sets the tone for everything that follows. Gratitude plays a big role here. Not loud gratitude, not performance-based gratitude, but quiet, consistent appreciation. When you acknowledge what's come into your life, you keep the flow open. Gratitude reminds you that this didn't happen by accident. It keeps entitlement from creeping in and helps you stay connected to the process that brought you here. Even small acknowledgements, internally or privately, can anchor you in the right mindset. Humility is just as important. Growth can shift how people see you, and sometimes how you see yourself. Staying humble doesn't mean shrinking or downplaying progress. It means staying teachable. It means knowing there's always more to learn and room to improve. Humility keeps your direction clear because it prevents distraction. When you don't feel the need to prove anything, you move with focus instead of ego. Discipline is what makes increase last. Without it, gains can disappear as quickly as they arrive. Discipline helps you manage time, energy, and resources wisely. It helps you say no when needed and stay consistent even when excitement fades. This is where stability is built. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be intentional. This phase asks you to stay grounded. Don't rush ahead mentally. Don't compare your progress to others. Stay present with what's in front of you. Handle what you've been given well, and more will naturally follow. Every decision now carries weight, but that doesn't mean pressure. It means purpose. Think of this moment as a door that's been opened. Whether more doors open depends on how you walk through this one. Stay thankful. Stay steady. Stay intentional. When you do, the path forward doesn't just continue, it expands. This wasn't luck. It was alignment catching up. It's important to understand this clearly. What's happening now isn't luck, and it isn't some random break that showed up out of nowhere. Every part of this moment is connected to choices you made long before today. The patience you practiced, the standards you held, the times you walked away instead of forcing an outcome, all of that built alignment. At the time, it may not have felt rewarding. In fact, it may have felt like you were missing out or falling behind. But alignment works quietly. It doesn't announce itself while it's forming. There were days when staying aligned felt pointless. Days when cutting corners or pushing harder might have seemed faster or easier. But you chose consistency over shortcuts. You chose honesty over convenience. Those choices stacked up, even when there was no visible reward attached to them. Alignment often feels slow because it's building something stable, not temporary. The timing you're experiencing now isn't random. It arrived when your mindset, actions, and capacity finally matched the outcome. That's why it feels solid. That's why it doesn't come with chaos or confusion. The silence you went through wasn't emptiness. It was space being cleared. The sudden order wasn't rushed. It was overdue. Everything moved when it was ready to move. What's been set in motion now isn't easily reversed because it's rooted in preparation, not impulse. You didn't pressure life into giving you this moment. You didn't manipulate circumstances to get here. You grew into it. Readiness has a way of unlocking doors without resistance. When the inner work is done, the outer shift happens naturally. This is also why the moment feels calm instead of overwhelming. There's a sense of rightness to it. You're not scrambling to catch up. You're stepping into place. That's alignment catching up to you, not luck finding you. So trust this phase. You didn't miss your moment. It arrived exactly when it could last. What you're experiencing now is the result of becoming the right person for the opportunity, not just wanting it. And that's why this chapter has staying power.